Hello, my name's Rachel and I work for Step 2 Young People's Health. This video is about vaping. So whatever you call them, however you know them, there are various names. There are disposable ones, there are reusable ones. There are quite a variety now of these on the market. You can go into a specialist shop and that is all they do. They deal with vapes. Whatever you call them, we are including that today. We are going to be talking about the reusable ones and the disposable ones. So, in vaping, an e-cigarette heats a liquid until it becomes a vapour. The person then breathes it in like you would do if you're smoking a cigarette. E-cigarettes do contain nicotine. So if you're a non-smoker and you suddenly start using an e-cigarette, you are now a smoker. You are now dependent on that nicotine. In terms of marketing e-cigarettes, there are specific rules in the UK. It is governed very much in the same way as a normal cigarette or tobacco product would be. However, there are lots of adverts everywhere, supposedly aimed at adults. Some of the taglines that they'll use reference the fact that they're healthier than cigarettes. Yes, in a way they are. They don't contain any of the harmful chemicals that cigarettes do. They don't have tar in, and they don't have carbon monoxide. However, they're not healthy, they're just healthier. Some people use them as a way to stop smoking and they're often marketed in that way. But if you've stopped smoking cigarettes and you've moved on to e-cigarettes and you plan on staying on those forever, you haven't stopped smoking. You're still taking in that nicotine. So it's a little bit misleading. If you're using them as a stepping point to then stop doing that, brilliant. Okay, but people are under this illusion that they've stopped smoking because they smoke an e-cig. They haven't. They still need the nicotine. They're marketed in various different ways. You know, love your lungs. Oh, brilliant. This is so much better. It's refreshing. It's better for my lungs. Some of the pictures that you see focus on glamour. So it looks really cool. It looks really good. This is very similar to what happened in the 1960s with cigarette advertising, and it was shown that it was, you know, it was the cool thing to do. It was really glamorous. You needed to be seen with a cigarette to look good. And they're kind of trying to go down the same line with e-cigs, which is hardly surprising given that the majority of the e-cigarette companies are now owned by the tobacco companies. You can see that there's some young people there, you know, they look good, they look glamorous. You know, you never know, if you switch to an e-cigarette, you might well look that good in your pants on the beach too. Or you might look as suave and sophisticated as the gentleman in the bottom corner. You've also got the promotional advert there, the buy 3 get 1 free, the buy 10 get 4 free. Those kind of adverts now are banned for alcohol in certain parts of the UK, but for e-cigarettes it's absolutely fine. E-cigarettes, you might find them in the supermarket on the same aisle as the shampoo. Okay, whereas cigarettes, we all know, have to be behind the counter, they have to be covered up, no advertising, nothing obvious whatsoever. These are not regulated the same way, even though they still contain nicotine and you are still smoking. There were a lot of issues around the way that some of these were marketed in America. The yellow picture, they're for Juul pods. And when they first came out, they were targeted at young people essentially through launch projects and through their advertising and things. At the last count, they've been charged about $450 million for their advertising because the significant uptake of young people that started vaping, juuling, whatever you want to call it, as a result of those adverts coming out was horrendous. There are lots of different flavours for e-cigs, and that can be for various reasons. Some people have said that if they're transitioning away from smoking, then they don't want that kind of harsh, difficult taste that you get from tobacco. It is an acquired taste and it is something that you build up over time, but people have said that if they're trying to move away from cigarettes, they don't want those flavours. So this is just one example. This is from one of the UK based vape shops. They carry 11 different ranges of vapes, so the different kinds of ones that you saw in the pictures earlier, disposables and reusables. and each of those ranges has its own flavours. So I've just picked, for example, one of the Elf bars. It's a disposable one. They've got 35 different flavours. Not one of those is just normal tobacco flavour. There is cream tobacco, but it doesn't taste like tobacco. All the different flavours there are designed to kind of bring you in a little bit, like, oh, what's Mad Blue? I want to try that. They're designed to grab your attention. Strawberry Elf Ball. Oh, I quite like the sound of that. It tastes like a strawberry energy drink that you might be familiar with. You've got Christmas specials there. You can have a cinnamon orange or a ginger man flavour. They're trying to draw people in. What this is also doing is drawing in young people, because they don't feel like they're smoking. They just feel like they're inhaling some mango smoke, whereas actually there's nicotine in that as well, so they are smoking. So all of this kind of marketing and all of these fun colours and fun adverts and interesting flavours, they can be really, really helpful if you're trying to transition away from cigarettes, but they're also really, really attractive to young people. Now, if you addict somebody to your product when they're young, then you've potentially got a customer for life. The tobacco companies have realised that they've been putting out these messages for years that smoking cigarettes was cool and it was really interesting, and you know, it would help you live an active lifestyle because it would open up your lungs. And then they've realised actually that's not the case, and we've been, you know, misleading, not intentionally, but misleading 2 generations of people. Young people are much smarter than that, and they're going to think, no, I'm not interested. So you need to introduce a product that will get them interested, which is why a lot of the major tobacco companies have now bought into the vaping companies, because they want to, you know, they want to have a product that will appeal to young people, because they know that cigarettes don't, especially now they're hidden behind the cabinets and they are so expensive due to taxes and things. They've introduced these products, you know, they're bringing out these new flavours, they're making tanks that look like you're turning into a dragon when you're smoking them, because the amount of vape and smoke and things that are coming out, they want it to look cool. That was their advertising campaign in the 60s. Smoke and you'll look cool. Now it's vape and you'll look cool. So the law in the UK, we do have laws around advertising similar to the cigarette advertising. We are not allowed to sell vapes or vaping products to anybody under the age of 18 in the UK. You are not allowed to buy them under the age of 18 in the UK. Shops that are selling them can face a fine of up to £2,500. There is a loophole in this law, unfortunately, that does need closing, and that's around free samples. In terms of the dangers of e-cigarettes, if it's the ones that you mix yourself, you're in control of the amount of nicotine used. Now, there are regulations around the amount of nicotine that is contained in the disposable ones, but if you're mixing it, you could accidentally make a mistake and put too much nicotine in. Some e-cigs have been known to catch fire and explode, exactly the same as phone batteries, as those hoverboard things that came in that everybody was really into a couple of years ago, and that's because of the type of battery that's in them. Obviously it's heating up a metal coil inside to heat up the vape liquid. If you run the risk of the battery getting hot, then they could catch fire or explode. There have been no studies yet around the risks of vaping in pregnancy. We cannot say either way whether vaping is okay when you're pregnant or you're not. We know that cigarette smoke damages the fetus, or can damage the fetus, but we have absolutely no idea about any risks around pregnancy. And quite simply, that's because we just don't have enough information yet. Information is being gathered, studies are being started, but the problem is it takes so long to do. You need such a huge data sample over a length of time, people using different products, and because there are so many different products, it's really difficult to kind of get comparable studies. So at the minute, we don't have a lot of information. We do know that you inhale far less chemicals, that they are 95% better than smoking cigarettes, simply because of the amount of chemicals that you're not inhaling using an e-cig. But we're still missing a piece of the puzzle. We still don't know what dangers there are from these e-cigs. We do know that they're incredibly addictive because they contain nicotine. Speaking of which, there's been an increase in cases of nicotine poisoning, which appears to be a direct correlation with the increase of people using e-cigarettes. So nicotine poisoning refers to the effects of consuming nicotine, toxic effects. Previously, it was really rare. It was people who were harvesting the plants. It was people that have nicotine pesticide on them. It was people who chewed tobacco. But now that's increasing, and this is because of new liquid nicotine products. So they're specifically or mainly for e-cigarettes. So if you mix your own tank and you pour in your own nicotine, if you get some on your skin, that could be extremely dangerous. The greatest risk is due to children, and that's simply because of body size and weight. Liquid nicotine, if it's poured on the skin, it can be poisonous to children within seconds. So just like, you know, Persil and all those other things that you've got in the house that you're told to keep out of reach of children, liquid nicotine needs to be kept away from children as well. If you have been poisoned, the most common symptom is vomiting, and about 50% of people get that. Mild exposure symptoms, you might feel rough for an hour or two. Severe exposure, 18 to 24 hours. But death can occur within an hour. It could happen if you spill some nicotine on your skin, if you ingest liquid nicotine, if you use too many replacement products. So for example, you might be aware of nicotine patches. You're only supposed to wear one at a time. You know, if you've got them all the way up and down both legs and both arms, that is potentially going to give you nicotine poisoning because your body is absorbing too much of it. At the minute, the main cases are from absorbing through the roof of your mouth. So that happens when you vape and you breathe in the smoke. You are bringing into your body the nicotine, which is absorbing through the roof of your mouth and getting into your system. The shops that sell the tanks and the vapes and things like that, they can help with advice around how much nicotine you should be using, how to mix your tanks and things like that. But they should not be giving that advice to children because it's illegal for them to sell to children. So if children are mixing their own, they are doing so at their own risk and could potentially give themselves nicotine poisoning. I just wanted to focus on the cost. So this could be seen as a significant positive for those who vape. So this is from Cancer Research UK, as you can see, and it's talking about over a 3-month period, people who smoke spending £475 on cigarettes. That's a lot of money. We're in a cost of living crisis as I'm recording this. People are struggling to pay for basics, for food, for electric. If they switch to e-cigarettes, yes, it is an awful lot cheaper, okay, but remember, we still don't know all the dangers, and if you're mixing your own, you run the risk of nicotine poisoning, okay, so it's not a silver lining, everybody rush to the vape shop, this is so much better than cigarettes, because we don't necessarily know that. Smoking cigarettes cost 2.5 times as much as using e-cigarettes, and it's something that the price goes up on very, very regularly because it's so heavily taxed by the government. The government make an awful lot of money from e-cigarettes, from cigarettes, sorry. So if you are struggling a little bit and you need a little bit of support, you're looking at smoking cessation advice, you are worried about your usage, you're worried about how much money you're spending on e-cigarettes, there are lots of places you can get support and advice. Step 2 James and Hill, you can see there, are working with the local authority. We are able to provide advice and guidance and signpost people. The NHS run all of the smoking cessation services. Childline will be able to point you in the right direction, or there is the Smoke Free app. If you're trying to quit, good luck.